I share an office with about 80 other people. My team shares a laptop if we want to take a laptop with us when we're traveling. We have one laptop to share between 4 of us. We share a printer. We have one printer for 80 people, I think. And we share a kitchen for making coffee and using the microwave, things like that.
Well, we share tools, which is a bit of a bugbear at times because some people like to keep certain tools in good condition. Some people, if it's not your tool, just sort of borrows, get used and forgotten about or left, especially in their toolbox. Sometimes you get to find it. If you can't find it in yours, you'll find it in someone else's. I'm one of the ones who like to keep things where they should be. Every tool has a home.
I mean, my whole space is shared. Basically, I have a little, area, desk area, but it's all open space. I mean, even the chief marketing officer, who, runs the marketing department. I run the corporate marketing piece of it. He's, runs the whole department. He's literally right in the corner and open space, and, he hears all of his team, and I'm a terrible cube mate because I have a loud voice, so I'm constantly apologizing. But everybody knows everybody's business. I'm not so sure that's such a good thing, but.
The advantages are it's nice to be with people. It's nice to be in a social environment and to have people to speak to, and to ask questions and ask for help if you need it. I think the disadvantage is that everybody has a different idea of comfort. I think everybody likes the temperature to be either hotter or colder than it is. Some people like sunlight, some people hate the sunlight and close the curtains when the sun comes out. Some people like noise, some people can't work if there's any noise at all. So I think that makes working difficult sometimes in that environment.
Cost, advantages of cost and space. If every individuals have their own tools, you'd have tools everywhere. But it's also respect as well. If you can use one area of tools and respect those and make sure they go back, then everyone can get along.
So the advantages are that literally people do know what you're working on fairly quickly, and a lot of quick conversations can happen and decisions can be made because sort of everything's happening together. There's also a lot of creativity that comes out of it in terms of problem solving or coming up with unique, approaches to something because people are hearing what's going on, and they also make connections for you that maybe you haven't been able to make because they're working on something else that has a thread to what it is that you're doing, but you're not aware of it. So that's the advantage, I would say. The disadvantage is that it can be extremely distracting. I have to either come in early or stay late to do sort of big strategic thinking in terms of just having some quiet time to really think through, putting together a deck. That's what we call that in America, a PowerPoint deck or a presentation or something like that. You need a little bit of quiet time.
This building is the Hub. It's in Islington, in North London. The Hub is a workspace for lots of different people. Most people at the Hub are self-employed with small businesses. Some people also work for the Hub. Anna Levy has worked here for about 3 years. She's a host, and she's responsible for helping the people who use the Hub. What sort of people use the Hub?
There's all sorts, people from very, very diverse backgrounds, different kinds of skills and experience and sectors, so from media, we have web design, consultants of various sorts and campaigners, people from lots of different backgrounds.
Lots of people come to the Hub because they don't want to work from home. It's a good place for meeting other people and sharing information and ideas. They can also share office equipment, which is expensive to buy. Do you think working at the hub is better than working from home?
It's a million times better than working from home. For a start, it's a lot more sociable. So a lot of people that come to the hub have been working at home for maybe 1 or 2 years, and they're going crazy with loneliness, and they have nobody to share ideas with. And so just from the social perspective, it's a lot better.
What office equipment can users of the hub share?
You also have access to resources that you wouldn't have at home, so like a printer and things like that, and scanner and a mailbox, and the sort of thing that you need when you start a business, and the sort of thing that you're used to having in a traditional office.
The hub in Islington is very popular, and there are 4 more hubs in London. The idea of the hub is also growing around the world. At the moment, there are over 30 hubs on 5 continents, with over 5,000 members. It's a global network of individual people who enjoy working together and who can see the advantages of sharing a workspace, different ideas, and experiences with others.
I noticed when I worked in Germany that the people I worked with were very formal towards me, and they'd call me Miss Hamilton instead of my first name, Mary. I thought they were quite direct, but actually the language they used was actually very polite towards me, so it wasn't so much of an issue. The other thing that I noticed was about food. I normally eat my main meal at the end of the day, but the Germans normally have their main meal at lunchtime. So if I went over to someone's house in the evening, I normally got bread and cheese, and I love bread and cheese, but I often felt hungry.
When I worked in Japan, there were a lot of cultural differences that I noticed, especially in the way that people communicate. People were very, very polite, and because there was a language barrier, it was quite difficult for me to understand what people were trying to tell me quite a lot. I think that also the food was very, very different. That was something that I had to get used to over time.
The differences between the United States, where I was born, and the United Kingdom, where I now live, are large and small differences. The language is the same, but it's also very different. American English is a different form of English to British English, and because I do communications, I am often being told about those differences. There are social differences as well, and they exist as differences in this country. So people in the South here tend to be a bit more reserved than Americans are. People in the north of England are very friendly, like Americans are, typically. People in Scotland are different again and lovely. But I think the biggest difference may be in the environment. The British protect their environment with green space legislation, and they protect their cities and towns with how they can be developed for houses. And in America, that's very different. And so the amount of concern and community feeling in Britain is superior, I think, to that of America.
I worked in Sweden for 2 years, and one of the things that I noticed was a different attitude to working hours. For example, in the summer, people tended to work shorter hours to make more use of the daylight, and in the winter they would work longer hours, and they were very good at keeping to their hours. Another thing was meal times. People tend to start work very early, and they would have breakfast extremely early, and lunch during the working day would be as early as possibly 11 o'clock, and the evening meal at about 5 or 6 o'clock. And that was much earlier than I was used to. Another thing was levels of formality. People tended to dress very casually, very informally at work, but when they went out in the evening, they would often dress up, put on a smart dress or a jacket and tie, and that was very different to, well, it was the opposite really to my experience of working in the UK.
They did. I changed my eating habits to fit in with the German working day. I changed straight back as soon as I got back to the UK though.
I definitely got used to Japanese food, and I really enjoy Japanese food now, so that did change. I think that the etiquette and manners over there are very, very good, and that didn't change.
Well, when I first came to live in the UK and lived in Scotland, my first impressions were very much about trying to understand what people were saying, because the accents were very, very different. And in England, I would also listen to the accents. Having lived here 7 years now, I take a lot of the accents for granted, and I don't hear them as well as I used to. So that's one big difference.
I don't think they changed. I think my attitude towards them probably changed. I got more used to them and they became much more normal. So I got habituated to them, I suppose.